Granite Act.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second, take 70 off the table. Any discussion? Representative Shostak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would oppose the motion because that's a massive bill that takes, we have no time left to do anything, and that would take whatever little time we have. It's impossible to get it done and do it any justice at all. It would be an injustice, I think, to try and understand that bill and work it through and even discuss it. That would kill everything else that we have to do today. I therefore oppose the motion.
Representative Pyler.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have to have a roll call to make sure we have a quorum.
We've never done that before.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Pierre, you want to call the roll? Thank you.
Representative Brady,
Here.
Representative Breton,
Here.
Representative Chestek,
Here.
Representative Filer,
Here.
Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lean,
Here.
Representative Singh,
Here.
Representative Webb,
Here.
Chairman Washut.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. So I believe we're going to have a motion to take 70 off the table. It's like Groundhog Day. All right. Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. I make a motion to take from the table HB 70 Wyoming Granite Act.
Is there a second? Representative Webb. Discussion. Representative Chestik.
You heard what I said before. I still stand by it.
Further discussion. It is a massive bill. On this one and all our other bills this morning, typically the committee tries to do as much as they can to get that bill ready before it goes on the floor. But I've seen it done before on days like this where it's the last day for introduction, that a lot of our amendments get held and taken up on committee of the whole rather than here in committee, so that we have time to hear all of the bills that are before us in the morning. That's of course completely up to the committee members, whether you bring amendments here or on the floor. I share your concerns with House Bill 70. It does reference all sorts of federal law and treaties and all sorts of things that I'm not sure my mind is wrapped around, but we'll see what the committee's feelings are before we get too far into it. All those in favor of taking House Bill 70 off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
No, that motion has carried. So committee, we have two options before us. We can move 70 to the bottom of the stack, or we can deal with 70 right now.
Mr.
Vice
Chair.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move we do pass House Bill 70.
I'd second.
So, motion to do pass and a second. Discussion on the motion. Representative Singh.
Thank you, members of the committee. I know if there are concerns about this bill, I'm always happy to make it a better bill. And so, and I know even on other bills, there are discussions that we need to have. And so that's the process, but we talk about justice, and I think this is a bill about justice. And so I'm asking for your support. Thank you.
Further discussion. Representative Chestik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is nowhere near ready for prime time. I don't think we've had any opportunity really to study the complexities of it. There are many amendments that I would like to propose. I'm not ready to do them this morning because I didn't believe we're going to take it up again. We don't want to take them up on the floor. This is an interim topic. It's something we can study during the interim. It's the only way we can do this bill any kind of justice at all. We're going to put something out here that nobody really understands. If we don't understand it, we have to defend it on the floor if we pass it. I'm not prepared to do that, and I therefore will vote no.
Further discussion. Representative Brady.
I see the importance of this bill, and we need to, I think, get a jump on this issue. So I'm going to vote for.
Further discussion? Okay. I shared Representative Chestik's, trying to remember your name, Representative Chestik's concerns about this bill. It's very complicated. It's got all sorts of references to federal law, federal treaties. And basically, we're at that point where we have to accept the bringer's proposition, which I think is genuine, that this is good legislation and it does what it does, what it's purported to do. But I don't know that any of us know that it does what it's purported to do. And if we were to encounter constituents at the grocery store when we get home and they say, well, what exactly did that House Bill 70 do? I think most of us would be pretty hard pressed to explain what that bill does and what it doesn't do, and how it acts with all of those federal pieces of legislation and federal treaties that aren't even named in the bill. So I'm not going to vote for it, but let's call the roll on House Bill 70.
This is a roll call vote on House Bill 70. Representative Brady,
Aye.
Representative Breton,
Aye.
Representative Chestick,
No.
Representative Filer.
Aye.
Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lean,
Aye.
Representative Singh,
Aye.
Representative Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Washut.
No.
6 ayes, 2 noes, 1 excused.
Thank you very much. That brings us to House Bill 108. House Bill 108. Good morning, Representative Bratton. Walk us through
Good.
your bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee again. Seems like we were just here. Thank you for considering this legislation. I started working with the Department of Audit last February on this fiscal transparency measure. The Department of Audit has been successfully implemented a framework for posting and reporting online financial reports that are already required of government entities. Until now, these reports, which are required to be filed with the department, were not easily searchable. If someone asked the Department of Audit about one of these reports, the department personnel would have to go and find the report to pass that on. And now the department has developed a process to seamlessly post those reports in one place on their website. These reports are invaluable for transparency, and I thank the department for assisting me in crafting this legislation. Please help me codify this important measure into statute, and I'd like to walk you through the bill. So this bill, Title IX, Chapter 1, Article 5, it's creating a new subsection, which is amended it's subsections O in Section 507 of Wyoming Statute 91507. On page 2, lines 1 through 4, it says that the Director of the State Department of Audit shall post the following reports on the department official website no later than the date specified. The bill goes on to specify the various sets of reports in the following paragraphs. For these 4 paragraphs, the Director of the Department worked to identify the relevant reports that are currently required to be filed with the department, and he also determined the timeline that he and his team were comfortable with for publishing the reports. On page 2, lines 6 through 10, Romanet I details the reports filed by counties, cities, towns, special districts, and other entities, which are further described in 91507A, Roman numeral 7. These reports are to be posted online by the Department of Audit by December 31st of each year. Page 2, line 12 through 16, details the reports filed by special districts and other entities as specified, and these reports are to be posted online no later than 30 days after the budgets are due to the Department of Audit. On page 2, lines 18 through 22, details the reports filed by the special districts and those are to be posted no later than 30 days after the budgets are due to the department. And finally, on page 3, lines 1 through 5, Those details the reports submitted that are to be posted no later than 30 days after the budgets, after those budgets are due to the Department of Audit. Since I began working with the department on this idea last February, March, they have posted all the reports that are in this bill for every year going back to 2019. This work has already produced results, and there's been some instances that I know of where a government entity had incorrectly been reporting their data, and that issue was addressed. This happened because these reports have been made available to the public online, and the public is already accessing that information for a variety of purposes. Since the access is now available online, that means the department does not have to spend as much time on the public data request. And that also would save the state money. This fiscal transparency is good for Wyoming, and I would stand for questions. And I also have the department here to testify.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'll bring the department up.
Gentlemen.
Good morning. We don't get to the Department of Audit and Judiciary very often, so make sure your little green light turns on and then introduce yourself for the record and tell us what we need to hear.
All righty. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Justin Chavis, Director of the Department of Audit. I have with me Rich Cummings. He's our Public Funds Division Administrator. That's the division that deals with our local governments. And I would just confirm what Representative Bratton said. We have this information out there. We've made it part of our normal process to get it out there. So there's no additional cost to us, no additional requirements that would cause a burden, and the public benefits from all of this information being easily accessible in one spot. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for being here. So if you've already done it, why do we need a statute change?
Mr. Chairman, I would say so. We've done it voluntarily to this point, and so you would have the potential of absent, once we leave our positions, future people coming into those positions deciding that that's not something they need to do. I think it would ensure that this data continues to be easily accessible.
Further questions? Representative Brady?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I want to thank you for taking the time to do that, make sure it's codified, and thank you for bringing the bill forward. I appreciate it.
Representative Webb?
Mine's more of a comment too. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've worked with some people in your department, and they have been very, very good to work with. And I just wanted to make that public statement. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none? Thank you both for being here. Sir, do you have something to add, or? Okay. Very good. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify on House Bill 108? Anybody on Zoom for 108? Close public comment. We have a motion to move the bill by Representative Lean. Is there a second? Representative Brady. Amendments to the bill. Are there any amendments to the bill? Don't see any. Are there any discussion on the bill? Question being called. Call the roll, please.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 108. Representative Brady,
Aye.
Representative Bratton,
Aye.
Representative Chestek,
Aye.
Representative Filer,
Aye.
Representative Kelly,
Excuse.
Representative Lean,
Aye.
Representative Singh, Representative Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Washington.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 excused.
Thank you. And Representative Bratton will carry it on the floor.
Yes.
Very good. Brings us to House Bill 39, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, please. Representative Washit.
Mr. Chairman, delightful to be here this morning after a restful night. I bring you House Bill 39, committee. This is the third effort on behalf of the Wyoming Legislature to try to get restoration of firearms rights right. You might remember last year during the general session, we amended our statute because we'd run into issues where individuals who'd been convicted in another state, when that state did not have a process for restoration of rights, were coming to Wyoming, seeking to have Wyoming restore their rights. And there were complications with that. So our endeavor last year was to limit Wyoming's restoration of rights to convictions that took place in Wyoming courts. No one anticipated the ramifications of that. And all of the many lawyers within this body that looked at that, and within the body at the other end of the hall, which looked at last year's legislation, never anticipated that someone would interpret that to mean that Wyoming would not give full faith and credit to a restoration of rights that took place in another state for a conviction of one of their citizens in that state. But somehow that's what happened. A constituent called me and said he had purchased a suppressor for a firearm in June of 2026 and passed the federal background check and got his suppressor. Then in July, he went back to the same gun store to buy a firearm and failed the instant background check. And the gun dealer raised his eyebrows and said, something I don't know. And so he filed all the appeals, right? And determined that the state of Wyoming had interpreted the statute that we passed last year to mean that Wyoming would only recognize restorations of firearms rights for Wyoming citizens who were convicted in Wyoming courts. Thus, if you had your rights restored in another state and then relocated to Wyoming, thinking that you were golden in that regard, an interpretation by our head lawyer for the state said that wasn't the case. Like I said, no one else seemed to interpret it that way. So I asked our legal staff at LSO to visit with the legal staff at the head attorney's office and see exactly what needed to be massaged in the language of the statute so that the state of Wyoming would issue a restoration of rights to individuals convicted in Wyoming courts if they met the qualifications. But that we would also recognize that if the state that took away your gun rights gave you your gun rights back, that Wyoming would say full faith and credit. And so that's what the purpose of this bill is. It's a fairly short, succinct bill. We could enter into all sorts of conversations about serving on juries and voting and other aspects of Wyoming statute, but the bill title is specific to the restoration of firearms rights. And I asked for a draft that would narrowly and precisely remedy the problem that is before us. I apologize. My constituent who brought this bill to us was on his way down last night, and I texted him saying, I'm not sure how tomorrow's going to play out. So I'd hate to have you drive all the way down here and then find out that maybe this committee doesn't meet at all, right? And so he went back home and apparently has not been able to make the Zoom connection to be with us today. But if we walk through the bill committee, we're looking at those areas of statute specific to possession of firearms of persons convicted in Wyoming. And what we're doing here is adding language on page 2, line 5, or the laws of the jurisdiction in which the conviction was entered. And then on line 15, or of the laws of the jurisdiction in which the conviction was entered. Then when we go over onto page 3, line 7 through 9, his rights are restored pursuant to Wyoming Statute 713-105A, or the laws of the jurisdiction of the conviction was entered. Pretty simple, straightforward. If my lawyers might prove me wrong, but it's my understanding that our Department of Corrections would not be issuing any documentation to people who had their rights restored someplace else. That would be up to that state to issue the necessary documentation. This whole area of restoration of gun rights is fraught with difficulties because the national government hasn't resolved issues. There's been some discussion that that's going to happen, but until it does, all of us states are muddling through trying to do what seems right and just for our citizens. And it's been a bumpy road. I'll tell you the truth. When we first passed the first restoration law a few years ago, a lot of discussion about did it go far enough to do things the right way? That's water under the bridge at this point. This bill is specific to trying to fix this one circumstance. And all of the legal talent that we normally rely on have told me that that's what this bill does. And but I never expected to get the interpretation that we got from last year's bill. So this is one of those issues where the more lawyers look at it, the more interpretations you seem to get. And so as your humble chairman, this is my effort, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions for Representative Watchett? Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just curious to know how this affects those that have been convicted of federal felonies.
Representative Watchett?
Mr. Vice Chair, Representative Webb, has no impact at all on federal felonies. That was one of the problems with the very first bill, was that we didn't make it crystal clear, apparently, to citizens that the restoration was only for the state felonies. You run the risk with that type of thing where people who had federal convictions weren't resolved, but maybe they also had state convictions that were resolved. They're still a prohibited person under federal law because of the federal conviction. So this is specific, our process is specific to state convictions under state law.
Any other questions, committee? Representative Brady?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a question, just a comment. Thank you for working on this and making it right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you, Representative. And now, if we have any comments or questions from the agencies? Anything from the agencies? Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, I'm Dan Shannon with the Department of Corrections. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words today.
Welcome.
As Chairman Washett spoke of, the changes to 68102 and 610106, it wouldn't have any impact on our department. We're governed under 713-105 for the issuance of certificates. So it's my understanding that the state would recognize, if this legislation passed, the state would recognize reciprocity with the state that restored states' rights. But Department of Corrections wouldn't be reviewing that or issuing a certificate. But I stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the committee? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments? Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Mr.
Chair, members of the House Judiciary Committee, my name's Brian Gosh. I'm a lawyer, registered lobbyist, of the National Rifle Association of America, and really appreciate Chair Washett's description of this bill and the issue generally and the problem we have at the federal level. I really appreciate the fact that he brought this bill to further clarify that out-of-state adjudications or determinations of restoration of rights will be honored in Wyoming. The federal problem that he noted, under federal law, there are 13 categories of individuals who have gun right disabilities. And once that happens, absent a pardon, there's no way to restore those federal gun rights except in a subsequent section, 18 USC 925C. There is a process laid out where one can make a petition to the Attorney General, to the Department of Justice, and seek relief of their gun right disabilities. Unfortunately, that although that took place from 81 to 91, according to the ATF statistics, there were over 13,000 applications at that time. But in 1992, Congress decided to defund that action that was being taken place by the ATF. So it was the Department of Justice authority to review those petitions. They delegated it to the ATF. Congress then defunded that particular activity to the ATF. There was an appropriation rider put in place. And so it has remained that way since 92, that there's no federal process in actuality to restore those gun rights until President Donald Trump was reelected recently, and he directed his departments, including the DOJ, to work on Second Amendment rights. And so one of the things the DOJ did in March was introduce an administrative rule to restore this petition process. Okay, so now that appropriation rider preventing the ATF from doing it is still in place. So the DOJ then pulled that delegation of authority away from ATF and moved it over to the Office of the Pardon Attorney. So that's wherein it resides now. The interim rule is being finalized. The National Rifle Association submitted comments to improve that rule. Gesundheit. And we hope that this year that process is finalized and petitions will start being received for the restoration of the federal rights. This bill is a great step toward restoring state rights and honoring out of state adjudications or determinations of restoration of rights. And I think you might see a situation where you need both. You're gonna need the state level and the federal level. And the federal level, that particular system hopefully is in place soon. And with that, I would stand by for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Any questions? Senator Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you repeat the federal department where that rule is being promulgated? I couldn't hear that.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
and represent our representative, this called the Office of the Pardon Attorney.
The Office of the Pardon Attorney.
Seems like an odd name, but that is what it is
Okay,
called.
thank
They have their own website and you can see a section on there that talks about this and that they're still working on that system.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further public comment? Further public comment on this bill? Nothing online? All right, seeing none. Chairman Watchett, anything else? All right, we're gonna go ahead and close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure? Moved by Representative Filer, seconded by Representative Lean. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion on House Bill 39? Question being called. Pierre, please call the roll.
This is a roll call vote on House Bill 39. Representative Brady,
Aye.
Representative Breton,
Aye.
Representative Chestek,
Aye.
Representative Filer,
Aye.
Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lean,
Aye.
Representative Webb,
Aye.
Vice Chair Singh,
Aye.
Chairman Washet.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 excused.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead and take the reins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. That takes us to our last bill of the day, House Bill 91. And here it is 8:30 and we're already into our last bill.
When we're tired.
Questions come out, yeah.
Another bushy-eyed representative joins us this morning. Good morning, Representative Ying.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Would you like me to start us off? On the
Please
last bit?
introduce your bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Mike Yin from House District 16 Representative, and I bring before you House Bill number 91, Ban on Government Social Scoring with AI. I probably should have edited the short title a little bit more because it's not only social scoring with AI, but it's also restricting essentially government overreach with unauthorized biometric surveillance. So there are two parts. There's the social credit scoring part, and then there's the biometric surveillance part. Basically, what we're talking about, I think everyone understands the concept of a social score. We've seen them in other places. What we don't want is for the Wyoming government to be issuing social scores in any of its, both the government and its political subdivisions. So what that could mean is basically there could be a score assigned to you where a government entity could rate you in a certain way based on that score. So maybe they don't like something that you've said, or they believe that I mean, basically anything that could impede your free speech and then regulating you in some way because of it. Let's say you're a developer, for example, and you're a developer where you don't want to have a government where they say, oh, these are the developers that we align with and these are the developers that we don't align with. I think those are the kind of issues that we're talking about with this. I've had some questions on where this language came from. This language is actually based on Texas's language. So they had a responsible AI bill. And so this is parts of it. I didn't take all of it. And then the biometric part, we can go through the definitions. So we have what's considered biometric data. And so that's data generated by the measurement of a person's biological characteristics. So fingerprint, voice print, eye, retina, and then some exceptions. And we can definitely talk about the exceptions, but specifically there's some about what's required under federal law. And then I think it's worthwhile to talk about the video and audio and the photograph ones after. And so if you go to page 5, we talk about the biometric data part. So this is basically saying, you know, the bulk or automated gathering of images or other media from the internet or other publicly available source without the person's consent. If pulling those images, pulling that biometric data would violate the person's right under any way, it would be not allowed. So the idea is to still allow law enforcement to do whatever they need to do, but only to the limits where it doesn't infringe on their constitutional rights. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Representative Yen, are we the first state to take up this type of legislation?
So, Mr. Chairman, no. Again, this language is basically lifted from Texas. Texas had a committee that worked on AI responsible legislation, and this is some of the text that came out of that legislation.
I suspect we're going to see more AI-related legislation in coming sessions. So
I think that's true.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming today. My question is about law enforcement, and sometimes they build profiles or socials. I wouldn't call it social scoring, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, because I don't see an exemption for law enforcement in here. Would they still be able to do their duties?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lean, I think, you know, what we want is law enforcement to be able to solve crimes. What I wouldn't want law enforcement to do is develop a score on recruitment targets, for example, of who they want in law enforcement. So if you have ideological disbelief, misalignment sometimes, I wouldn't want law enforcement to create social scores for that. But I think if we want to put places where we can protect them in making sure that they can solve crimes, I think that's more than, I'm more than happy to accept amendments around that.
For the Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Yin, for coming. I have a question, what compelled you to bring this bill? And another one is, it applies to stored data, but not live data. Can you explain that?
Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So what compelled me to bring it, frankly, is that, you know, we've been kind of working on privacy regulation in our blockchain committee, but we never really were able to settle on anything. And so I really wanted to bring something that protects people's privacy, frankly, from government intrusion. And I think that's something that everyone can agree with in the state of Wyoming. And so trying to figure out what I believe lines up with Wyoming values and similarly protects against a growing threat, essentially, of more government intrusion using AI. And then around stored versus live data, I mean, I think that again, this came from Texas. I'm not exactly sure around the discussions they had around the different types of data, but I think it's I'm more than willing to work with the committee or members on the floor to figure out what that should look like.
Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Yin, thank you for being here. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm not sure. So if you could just clarify for me. Does this in any way prohibit or regulate the use of things like Facebook posts and Facebook data? Could a government go through Facebook and maybe have an AI program go through Facebook and suck up all your comments and everything else that you said on Facebook and then do some scoring with that data?
Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, so using in the biometric data part, taking the data is not necessarily against the bill unless it's being used in a way that violates a person's constitutional rights. And so that's pretty explicit in the bill. We would not allow them to create a social score, so that social scoring part as well. You still can't make a social score if the social score would be used to make preferential treatment anyway on a person.
Follow
Follow-up. But a private company could still suck up that data and use it to market goods to you. Is that correct?
Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's correct. This has no prohibition on private persons or private industry. This is about government's use of data and AI.
Further questions? So, Representative Yan, I'm going to show my ignorance a little bit, but this is all pretty new. So help me understand the difference between investigating a single case using AI tools and developing an AI score. Are those different acts?
So, Mr. Chairman, again, this is, we can look on page 4. So we talk about no government entity shall deploy, develop, or use an artificial intelligence system to evaluate or make, and so you have all of this part with the intent to calculate or assign a social score of the person or group that results or may result in detrimental or unfavorable treatment of a person in a social context, unrelated to the context that the social behavior or personal characteristics were observed or noted. And so if it's if you're creating a score that is unrelated to what has been, again, this is a little wordy, unrelated to the context, and frankly, I have not had enough sleep, and I understand everyone else hasn't as well. Basically, it's saying the score can't create preferential treatment, and it's more about how government treats people it interacts with, but not how it treats crimes. So I guess maybe you could say that if for part 3 on lines 20 to 22, it could interact with law enforcement if there were infringements of rights guaranteed under the Constitution, Wyoming Constitution, state or federal law. And so it would be an additional cause of action for someone to sue if they believed that law enforcement infringed on their rights. And they also used the AI tool to create some sort of unfavorable treatment that infringed on their rights.
Thank you. That helped a little. Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. Here's a question. Why is University of Wyoming and community colleges exempt?
Representative Young.
Mr. Chairman, so my suspicion is, well, I put the language in, but again, it's similar to Texas's language, and they exempted their university, they exempted hospitals, et cetera. My suspicion is that all came to their committee work where you had people asking for specific exemptions. And so rather than have them all come here, I just used the same exemptions that Texas used.
Further questions? Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about the definition of biometric data in the voice print, and we talked about that. So in the list of exceptions to the definition of biometric data on page 3, lines 1 and 2, the exceptions include audio recording or data generated from a video or audio recording, but it seems to me that a voice print comes from data generated by that video or audio recording. So you've defined biometric data as including voice prints, but then excluded what seems to be the definition of a voice print.
Representative Young.
Mr. Chairman, and I actually agree with Representative Bratton. You know, I think this is a mistake sometimes when you try to just pretend that other states actually do a good job on everything. Sometimes they make mistakes, and we can definitely fix them.
Further questions? Follow up?
Thank you. Actually, another question. My next question is regarding the exception for C on page 3, lines 4 through 6. And the bill makes an exception for information collected, used, or stored for healthcare treatment, payment, or operations under HIPAA. So does that mean that like COVID test results would be accepted from the statute and could be used by government entities for social scoring?
Representative Young.
Just trying to think of an example.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I think, and we actually exempt them in government entities, but I think there are situations where there are entities governed under HIPAA, and the interaction with HIPAA and federal law, it's easier and less complicated to just exempt data that is operating under HIPAA than it is to say, we're going to try to figure out what the interactions between HIPAA and this law would be. Not to say it's not worth the squeeze to try to figure out how we interact that way, but it's definitely, it can definitely become a sticky wicket that I'm sure many lawyers may want to exploit in some way.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Yin, I wasn't here to hear the conversation, but did you talk about how this may impact law enforcement?
Representative Young.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Singh, I did. And like I said, to Representative Lean, I think it's worth figuring out how we can make sure that law enforcement can still solve crimes while still making sure that government doesn't create preferential treatment with social scores.
Further questions? Thank you. Anyone online? Anyone in the room wishing to testify on House Bill 91? Mr. Thompson, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of WASCOP, Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. And I would just like to say that AI is a conversation in the law enforcement world right now that we're struggling with as much as you are. From the officer level usage all the way up to agency level, and especially with contracting for services like software services, where an agency purchased a service or an access to a service, but does not know what's the brains behind it, and AI is a part of everything. And I feel like this bill, as written in simple language, would prohibit us from working with almost any of those contractors for software usage or outside entities. I understand that the intent of the bill is to, kind of rein in that government overreach and try and keep things constitutional. I would argue that all of the things that this bill purports to do are already protected by the Wyoming and the United States Constitution. If we are profiling people in government and in law enforcement, that should already be unconstitutional, and there should be a right of cause of action for that. But I would just ask the committee in general to consider this as maybe an interim topic. When you look at the amount of people that could be affected by this and then the impact on law enforcement, I think it takes careful study and a lot more knowledge of what the language in the bill really provides. And I would give the, give the example that Texas, this is 5 pages of a bill carved out of Texas's bill. That Texas bill is 30 pages long, 30 pages long. And so I think this opens up a lot of opportunity for maybe having a law that wasn't the intended purpose. I would just like to point out, for example, if you look at the biometric data definition, it includes data generated by the measurements of a person's biological characteristics. This affects coroners trying to identify remains found that have been out for a long time, and there's no other means other than measuring a skull, measuring femurs, measuring the bones that are left over, and based on the construction of those, looking at race as a way to help identify people. And I mean, that's not always an accurate science, but it puts us in the right direction. I think this might prohibit things like that are just not at all intended to assign a social score. The things that it could impact on the side, I could go on and on. I'll keep it brief, Mr. Chairman. I would like the committee to consider amendments that are the exact language that Texas has in their statute, where it says, looking at this portion about government prohibitions, it says this section does not apply to the development or deployment of an artificial intelligent model or system for the purposes of preventing, detecting, protecting against, or responding to security incidents, identity theft, fraud, harassment, malicious or deceptive activities, or any other illegal activity, or preserving the integrity of a security system, or investigating, reporting, prosecuting a person responsible for a security incident, identity theft, fraud, harassment, malicious or deceptive activity, and any other illegal activity. And I'm not sure that our folks from DCI or ICAC are here, but I'm sure that this would be very interesting to them and some of the programs that they use. And so I would be happy to provide these written amendments should the bill proceed. But in general, I would just ask this to be an interim topic where we can all sit down and talk about the impact of AI in government in Wyoming. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Have you been in contact with your counterparts in Texas? Have you talked to anybody down there?
I haven't, Mr. Chairman. I started looking at articles and news stories about the impact on law enforcement down there. And as I look at these exceptions that are written in there, I feel like law enforcement would be good with that, or we'd already be seeing news stories about how this impedes investigations. And I think the reference to illegal activity in both subsections of these exemptions really allows law enforcement to use this for catching the bad guy, but not for profiling applicants or profiling the public as a general practice to determine risk of crime in the future. Some of those types of things. And I would think the law enforcement nationwide would get behind those concepts that prohibit us from doing some of those things that we shouldn't be doing.
Okay, if the bill moves forward today, please make sure I have a copy of that language that you just read for us.
I will provide it to the LSO today, sir.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Good morning. Introduce yourself, make sure the green light's on, speak right in the microphone so everybody can hear you, and tell us what you want us to hear about this bill.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Washit. and committee. I'm Sherry Davis from Cook County. I'm simply a citizen, and we are all categorized. They have a make on all of us. I don't question that at all with the information available. And I even sat in on a training on elections, and I says, well, how do we know how people's going to vote? They says, oh, they know. So anyhow, be that what it is, there's considerations during when the war on coal, will say big banks weren't loaning money to coal companies, right? Because coal's out. And so there's some issues and they need addressed. I don't question that. But we also do identify terrorists and high-risk people that provide safety to our nation. So there's two sides to this coin, and he spoke well. And so I can't tell you if you should move it forward or take it to committee, but I could say it is ground to protect the citizens, but protect our country. And so it should be considered on both sides. I'm definitely no expert, but I appreciate your willingness to look at it, know it's a need, and know we need to do wisdom when we have it. So I stand for questions. Thank you.
I didn't catch your name. One more time.
Sherry Davis from Crook County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you hold office there? Or a resident of the county is concerned about the topic?
I am a resident concerned about the topic.
You heard the suggestion that maybe the committee take this topic up over the interim, which would mean several meetings over the summer where we take a deeper dive into this topic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do understand that's postponing it. However, some things you hold off to do right. And I just think of our president being shot at and bombs and the mess our nation is in. And I hate to say some profiling is appropriate. However, when you're talking about attacks on our nation, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of illegals from mental institutions, I mean, we're just being honest. We all know it. And from jails coming into our country, there is two sides to the coin. Our law enforcement, we see they're under attack, and they're good people that fight for our freedom every day. Like, we need to give them the tools to do that, but we need to protect our citizens from profiling as well. So I don't think it's an easy task, and it probably should be looked at hard and brought forward and hopefully passed on a solid bill, in the general. So that would be my opinion, but who am I, right?
Thank you so much. Questions? I appreciate your participating this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify on this bill? Anybody on Zoom? Going to close public comment. Committee, what's your preference? Representative Chestick? Moved by Chestick, second by Singh. Amendments to the bill. Seeing none. One more look. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we adopt the language provided by WASCOP to help out our law enforcement officials.
Is there a second? Second by Singh. To adopt the WASCOP amendment. Do you have a copy of that, Pierre? Discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of this amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Any other amendments? Committee, any thoughts on an interim topic rather than moving the bill forward today?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and this is what I'm about to say, I guess, is outside of the scope of this bill specifically, but I anticipate the Select Committee on Blockchain and whatever else to be one of the topics of the interim will be how artificial intelligence and data collection deals with law enforcement. And so I am happy to advocate for this bill today. I think this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed, and we need to tackle the issue of how law enforcement is able to do their jobs and protect the community but at the same time that we protect the rights of individual citizens and prevent them from having to deal with some sort of monstrous government that I think all of us are opposed to. And that's a delicate balance, and it deserves conversation. And I think it deserves conversation now. And so I'd be happy to talk about it on the floor. I'd ask for an aye vote on the bill today, but just know that the topic of that relationship will be something that I would also advocate for to management council that we're able to talk about during the interim.
Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm also concerned if this, I don't know that this bill addresses U.S. citizens with the concerns about perhaps terrorists or whatever. So I wonder if that needs to be in the bill. Thank you. I mean, I'll move to do it if I don't see it.
You have a motion, please make it. Otherwise, bring it on maybe committee of the whole if you want some time to think about it. Representative Filer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think also I'm in support of moving this forward. The industry itself is booming. There's a lot of information out there. There's, the fact that we need something. I just don't want to see us get behind the 8 ball on this and see something that we're trying to run after to fix a problem. I'd like to be more proactive with this. As far as I think, with this amendment in there right now, the way the bill is, it gives us a heck of a platform. Even if the bill passes all the way through, I still think it's something we still take up, but this is a start. This gives us a good platform to start moving in the direction of how we can protect our citizens' rights.
Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am interested in moving this bill forward. I would ask that the representative would work with Alan Thompson with WASCOP on making sure that some of these issues that were brought up as far as the facial recognition, we need to clean up the part on the biometric data. And I would also be interested in an amendment for an exclusion and for the colleges and government-owned healthcare facilities. But I think this is a really important topic.
Thank you. My first thoughts on this is I'm really curious what was covered in the remainder of the 30-page Texas bill that's not in this bill, whether that's a good thing that we've avoided extraneous stuff or whether it's indicative that we've missed something. And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm glad that the select committee will be likely to take this topic up. As I said at the outset, I think we're going to see more and more AI bills. AI is going to touch every facet of government, from agriculture to judiciary to health. And there are going to be implications for statutory changes, and future legislatures are going to have to find that right balance and come to a better understanding of what this technology means for the people of Wyoming and our operations and state government. So any further comments on the bill? Question being called. Call the roll on 91.
This is a roll call vote on House Bill 91. Representative Brady.
Aye.
Representative Bratton.
Aye.
Representative Chestek.
Aye.
Representative Filer.
Aye.
Representative Kelly.
Excused.
Representative Lean.
Aye.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Webb.
No.
Chairman Washut.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 no, 1 excused.
Good luck on the floor. All right. And with that committee, we've concluded the housework. My co-chairman from the other end of the building and I are working on a date to come up with interim topic discussions, probably be toward the end of the session after we finish with Senate file. There's usually a day or two in there that we can get together. So if you haven't already thought about interim topics, please give that some consideration, and there's a form available on the website for any of your constituents or stakeholders who might want to participate. With that, we'll stand adjourned.